this, but it's already missing a week and 2 days from the Shloshim Yom, but we are in the Shloshim Yom, so maybe we should have done Gimmel Sivan, but at least now it's never too late. We have still 3 weeks for Gimmel Tammuz, so now it's the time to actually get together and be niseirer and greatness for Gimmel Tammuz. And as the Rebbe said then, the inyan von imdu ochem kulchem, he said it many years. It's all from the famous letter the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote about the Yom Elul from Rebbe Nishmos Eden, imdu ochem kulchem. And the Rebbe says what imdu means, what hochem means, what kulchem means. So before we start the Farbrengen, we will ask our technical guy to bring up a video from the Rebbe. We will start with the video from the Rebbe before we start the Farbrengen. So I would like to ask Levi to bring up the video.
Der Ried, wo der Rebischter hat ihm ausgeklebt und hat ihm gemacht, dass soll sein der, was vereinzigt alle Jiden von dem Dor, wo das ist der Nossi Hador, Hanossi Hu Hakeil, Teres Emme sagt, dass der Nossi vereinzigt in sich Hakeil, alle Jiden von klein bis groß, was gefunden sich in sein Dor, wird geheißen verschreiben und notdrucken und befassen sein, verschiedene Takonis, wo befragt die Maimorim seine, die Tere seine, was in See hat gelebt und sich in See hereingelegt, was so die alle Sachen, hört mir sich und mir redet wegen See und mir lebt in See, verstärkt das noch mehr, wie bald als Zare Bachai, mir lebt mit seinen Teilen und mit seinen Takonis und mit seinen Schlichus, mit alle sein Schlichus, und das Gufe im Madgisch, als Hu Bachai, als lebt zwischen uns und noch mehr in uns und lebt in Asamin Neufen, bis wann als Welt der Rike und alle übrige Inyonim und Menschen werden seine Schluchim mit dem Schuss, aber wird Schluche Shalodem Kemeise. Wie die Schoner beschoner, wird noch mehr lebendiger und noch mehr starker und noch mehr aktiv zwischen uns und bei uns und durch uns bei jeder Jeden und bei allen Jeden, bis in der ganzen Welt.
L'chaim, l'chaim. The Rebbe used to always say that everyone loves a naya zach, when there is something new and fresh. I heard lately a story, what was a spasm lately, what I never heard before. So it's a naya gilu to me, at least. This is about Rabbi Binyamin Cohen, the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Cohen, the Rosh Yeshiva in Australia. About his wife told a story that she was from a Chassidish family, and she was looking for a bocher who has more general knowledge, not just Gemara and Chassidus. And she met a few bochim, and she didn't like them. And she was by the Rebbe in Yichidus, and the Rebbe said to her, "Is it nicht vergessen einladen to the Chasana?" The Rebbe said, "Don't forget to invite me to the wedding." And then a year later, then this bocher, Binyamin Cohen, came to 770, and her brother said to her, there is a bocher who is Tyre London, and he has general knowledge because he learned in those places. And in Gateshead, but they learned also general knowledge. So she was excited that the father was went to Mendel Futterfast, was a Mashpiach, and Mendel said, no, he's not thinking about it. Anyway, a year later, someone offered the shidduch, and they went out 3 times, and she wasn't ready to decide. The bacher was ready to decide. She wasn't ready to decide. So one day she went for a shir. She comes back home late at night, and she sees her father and her brothers are all sitting around the table. And she said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, Rabbi Chodakov called for you, Rabbi Klein called for you, Rabbi Gonen called for you. They all want to talk to you. What did you do?" So she said, "Okay, I'll call them tomorrow." They said, No. They said you call the second you come into the house. So she called Rabbi Chodakov. Rabbi Chodakov said, "The Rebbe is asking what's happening with the shidduch." So she said that she met, but she's not sure, and this. And what does the Rebbe say? Rabbi Chodakov called the next day, and the Rebbe said to continue with the shidduch. No, they continue with the shidduch. And then Rabbi Chodakov called again. And finally, he said, the Rebbe said, based on what I understand that you're looking for is the right person for you. Fine, they decided to become Chassan Kala, and then they came for Yechidus. And the Chasana was scheduled for Beis Tammuz, early Gimmel Tammuz. And in the Rebbe's letter to the Chasana, the Rebbe wrote Beis Gimmel Tammuz, which is unusual. The Rebbe should write 2 dates. Because the Chasana is on Beis Tammuz, but it's early Gimmel Tammuz. The Rebbe wrote Beis Gimmel Tammuz. And then the custom is to give in the azmana, the invitation before the Yechidus. But she decided, because the Rebbe was so involved in the shidduch, she'll give the Rebbe the invitation when she comes in. So when they came into Yechidus, the Rebbe said, "B'tashmeichu, es kumtach mir shatchones." I deserve shatchones for I was a shatchen. And then she gave the Rebbe the invitation. And when she gave the Rebbe the invitation, the Rebbe says, Iker ishtatfus is doch beruchnis. That the most important, the Iker of the ishtatfus is beruchnis. And she says that our first son was scheduled to get married. Her b'chayr was scheduled to get married on Gimmel Tammuz Tovshin Nun Daled. And then Gimmel Tammuz happened, and they didn't know what to do. But the husband kept saying, everyone was devastated, Gimmel Tammuz. But the Rebbe said to them in Yechidus, when he gave their wedding, which was on Gimmel Tammuz, Iker ishtatfus is doch beruchnis. So that's very important for us today, when we are getting ready for Gimmel Tammuz. After the 30 years already, so we have to remember that nekuda, the Iker ishtatfus beruchnis. I remember one of the most special moments when we were by the Rebbe were the sichas of the nights of Sukkot. The nights of Sukkot were very different than the regular Farbrengen. Not only mitzad Rebbe, also mitzad Chassidim. All the bachim who had the moken kavuya didn't have any moken kavuya anymore, because the Rebbe stood at its place, and it was not like a Farbrengen, and everyone. It depends if you could be an Israeli kid, 13-year-old kid. You came yesterday from Israel. You could have a best place there because there's no seats. Everyone could. If you come 5 hours before, you'll have a seat. And the Rebbe's signet was very, very unique and very different, especially Yom Tov, when the Rebbe was standing there and speaking, and there was no microphone, and the Rebbe mamish made an effort to scream that everyone should be able to hear him, and everyone was like, I remember we all landed. Because my father used to stand behind the Rebbe, so all the Greenbergs landed there, and all the Wolves landed because Berke Wolf stood there, and all the Liberovs landed there because Mendel stood there, and so on. I don't know how we all fit in on that first bench behind the Rebbe, but somehow we fit in. It's one of the miracles from 770. I remember one year was Tovshim Memhei, and the Rebbe spoke that year about the Tzad HaShove between the Oshpizin, the Chassidish Oshpizin, and the Rabbeim, and the Oshpizin. And what's different between those Oshpizin? I remember it was the 3rd night of Sukkot, and it was actually Friday night. There was no microphone yet. And the Rebbe spoke about what's the Tzad HaShove between the Alter Rebbe and Yankiv Avinu, and what is different between them. So the Tzad HaShove, the Rebbe said that the Yankiv Avinu was in Yonei Teira, Ish Tam Yeshiv Olim. And the Alter Rebbe, of course, is in Yonei Teira. And the Alter Rebbe was the Baal Shulchan Aruch and Baal Tanya. What's different? The Rebbe said, at Yankiv Avinu, everyone knows, Yankov said, Yemei Chai Roim, that was very bad life he had. He had Tzores, he had Tzorah from Dina, and Tzorah from Yosef, and this Tzorah, and that Tzorah. All his life was horrible. The Pshuta Shel Mikra, the Rebbe says, Yankov Avinu had a very hard life. Esav was after him, whatever, had a hard life. And then the Rebbe said, the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe is totally different, Rebbe said. Why the Alter Rebbe different? The Alter Rebbe had a life of tainug, of pleasure, all his life. Why was it a life of tainug? The number one, the Alter Rebbe was in tainug when the Maggid chose him to write the Shulchan Aruch. And he was full of tainug. The Maggid chose him to write the Shulchan Aruch, and that would be the Shulchan Aruch for all the Yidden after the Beis Yosef. And not only that, that even after he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, the first contrasting, he showed it to the brothers, Reb Shmelke and Reb Balaflo, and they praised it. So definitely was full of tainug. Then he was full of tainug that he wrote the Tanya. But then the Rebbe said something very unique. What Alter Rebbe was full of pleasure and tainug, because the Rebbe says he knew that Chassidus Chabad will bring Mashiach. And then the Rebbe started a whole thing about that. The Rebbe Sfiras HaChochma. It says by Chochma it says Ezu Chocham Areis HaNeilad. That what is a Chocham who could see what will happen in the future. And the Rebbe asked the question, why does it say Areis HaNeilad? It could see. The Rebbe said that scientists say that if, theoretically speaking, if a person, everything in the world is Sibu Mesuvav, everything has a cause and an effect. So if something happens in the world, if theoretically speaking, if you could figure out everything that's happening in the world today, you'll be able to tell what will happen in the future as a result from all those activities happening in the world. So why do you? So every Chocham could do it. So what is the mile of the Alter Rebbe? Why Mishnah said there's a Chocham Areis HaNeilad that you could see? The Rebbe explained the difference between to know and to see. The Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe was able to see how Chassidus Chabad will be nispashet to every Jew in the entire world, and how this will be Mashiach. So the Alter Rebbe was full of pleasure and tainug because he was able to see how Chassidus Chabad will bring Mashiach bepeil mamish. So therefore, his life was full of tainug, knowing that his Chassidus, which is Yafutzah Menesecha Chutzah, will bring Mashiach. How this will make it happen. There was also a Farbrengen in Yud Shvat Tovshin Chof, where the Rebbe spoke about the Baal Shem Tov. And the Rebbe spoke about the Baal Shem Tov when he wrote the famous letter that Mashiach told him, Mashiach told that will bring Mashiach. But the Rebbe says in the Farbrengen that when the Baal Shem Tov made that hachroza, that the Rebbe said, the Baal Shem Tov since the Baal Shem Tov was making this announcement, he definitely saw how the world will look like a generation after the Baal Shem Tov. 2 generations of the Baal Shem Tov. 7 Deires Nochem, 7 generations of the Baal Shem Tov. Bis Dora the Malka Mashiach. We all know that the Rebbe Rashab was the 7th generation of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe, that's the 2 generations that started to speak about Mashiach in public. Friedrich Rebbe started in Tovshin Gimmel, then the Rebbe, the entire Deir Shvi. Dora the Malka Mashiach. And the Rebbe says, Unat Meshayr given, the Eden was von Demel Zain. The Baal Shem Tov saw 7 generations after him, and Dora the Malka Mashiach, and he was Meshayr, what type of Jews will be there? And the Baal Shem Tov had ogipasst, the Psak Din Gomel, that the only way to bring Mashiach will be the Eitzah is to be Mesiv Zayin in Teres Baal Shem Tov Tzageiches Chutzah. So if the Rebbe tells us that the Alter Rebbe saw 7 generations ago, he was full of pleasure because he saw Bias HaMashiach, how Chassidus Chabad will lead to Mashiach. The Baal Shem Tov, and he said in his letter, Geras HaKedesh, he made a achroze, that the Mashiach told them, the Baal Shem Tov was able to mishayr what type of people will be 7 generations later, Bidom HaMashiach. Is Kolshkin v'Kal V'chemer for each one of us to understand that the Rebbe, our Rebbe, the Rebbe of Deir Shvi, that each one of us who are sitting here Many of us have been zeicher to be by the Rebbe, have been zeicher to be at Yechidus by the Rebbe, have been zeicher to get dollar from the Rebbe, been zeicher to get the royal gon shlichus from the Rebbe. Is Koshkin the Kal Vachemer much more so that the Rebbe saw clearly each one of us, and that when the Rebbe announced that the day Rashvi is the day to bring Mashiach, if the Baal Shem Tov saw 9 generations ago, the Rebbe tells us, in the very same Farbrengen, Yud Shvat Tov Shechom, the very famous Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about the Mishnah from Nifroim in order Midaite, Vishalei Midaite, that when a tzaddik makes a psak din about another tzaddik, he passes on himself. So definitely there's no question about it. There's no doubts that the Rebbe clearly saw exactly what will happen with each one of us. The Rebbe saw the Shluchim today. He saw the Batei Chabad today. He saw what we will have to deal with. He saw October 7. Every detail that's happening, that the Rebbe is with us non-stop, because there's no doubt, Bichlal. But if the Baal Shem Tov saw it, the Alter Rebbe saw that the Rebbe, this generation definitely saw everything, and he's leading us, and he's preparing us for Mashiach. So everything we do. So when it comes to Gimmel Tammuz, the number one thing that we have to remember is that Nekude, that the Rebbe is with us, and the Iker Shaychas of the Rebbe with Chassidim, as the Rebbe said to her, the Iker Ishtatvus is Beruchnius. That means that the Iker Shaychas of the Rebbe Chassidim is Beruchnius, and therefore that didn't change one iota. That's exactly the same way it was before. V'meile, that's what we need to do. For that we need to prepare ourselves, and we need to strengthen ourselves in that inyan. And therefore, we would like to ask now, Choshev Shliach, Mendel Lipskier from California, who had the schus to be by the Rebbe from the day he was born, every davening, every Farbrengen, every sicher, stand by the Rebbe's feet and be zeicher to be mekusha zum Rebbe. So you should give us a few warme Wörter to Hufeib Mos Almen. Chaim lechaim.
Chaim. Thank you. We're approaching Gimmel Tammuz as we experienced it in our generation for the 32nd time. "31 years, the 32nd time. Gematria Lev. Lev is the heart. The Rebbe is the heart. The Melech is Liebe von ganz Kal Yisroel. And it's the 32nd time. So Simu Levavchem Yiten Liba, it's all very much applicable in a very amplified way, a lot stronger. I remember as a child, many Chassidim, I was trying to find who was the source of this nusach, but I heard it by Farbrengens from Rabbi Abdraskin al Shalom and Rabbi Katzman and Rapinya. They used to have this line, "Mezon zayn kelim, brachas, mezon zayn kelim." The Rebbe will do in the Kavana, mezon zayn kelim. They kept using this line, mezon zayn kelim. If anybody knows which mashpia was the one that drove this line, but it was a very interesting line. You can see that when they said it, it meant something very strong. It was all zayn kelim. I'm sure there's many pirushim. Mashgacha pratis, because of 31 years, approaching 32nd year. So Duchi cooked up Farbrengens around Yud Shvat Tavshin Mem Aleph, which is for now just in the Sichas Kodesh format, which is very geschmack. And Shabbos before Yud Shvat that year, the Rebbe spoke about being Kalim. What is a real Kali? Thank you for I heard Rabbi Greenberg bring up the Farbrengen of Yud Shvat. It's Gor, interesting, very special Farbrengen. A lot of interesting things. But this is Shabbos before about Kalim. The Rebbe sagt that at Hachana to Yom HaHilula, with Yud Shvat, the Rebbe said even by Neshamas Klolius that didn't the Nishkedaft Ariber gain in Olam HaEmes because they were never in a different Welt. They were always in Olam HaEmes. Everything by them is Olam HaEmes, but there's different things that is Yartzeit, different things that's Istalkos, different things that's Hilula. And you have to make proper Hachanas. And proper Hachanas, Dr. Rebbe, has to be in a way that it should be real Kalim. And the Rebbe said something interesting, that Begashmi is, you don't see in all Kalim the real value of what a Keli really is, like it Beruchnis. Begashmi is, you see a Keli like a cup. The Rebbe used the marshal, a cup that holds wine or a drink. You see how the Keli is a container to hold what's inside it. But you don't see the real aspect of a Keli, that a Keli is mamshich da'er, where he talks about in Chassidus. A Keli is mamshich da'er. That you don't see. That you see in Evarim. Mashal in Chassidus, that the Ever is a Keli, that's mamshich chayis hanefesh. And here you see that it says that the Ever wants to be alive, and therefore the Ever does everything to pull into it, be mamshich from the nefesh, the chayis into the Evarim. And the Rebbe says, really, by Kalim, it's also that way. The Rebbe said, even by Kiddush cup, it's that way. That everything Begashmius wants to reach its shleimus. And for a Kiddush cup to reach its shleimus, darf es noch machen a brach auf Kiddush. Ubemela darf man noch haben wine in a wenig. Ubemela, they have to be pale at the wine, she want to be nimshach into the kais. And all that's happening. Now, Begashmius mazetus nicht. But Beruchnius, that's what it really is. And the Rebbe brings out the word that being Kalim means that when we do Pa'ulas al Tzachana, to connect to Yom Hilula, to be Kalim, to be Mamshich, the brachas, that the Al Hachanas should be Kedebai, and the Hilula should be Kedebai, and all the Pa'ulas should be Kedebai. We have to do it in a way that our preparations are Kalim, proper Kalim, to be Mamshich the Eir. I thought, oh, that's a better pshat, or a tiffer pshat, the real pshat. And what is the pshat? It's all zayin kalim. It's all zayin kalim. We do. Everybody does. Of course. We're all chassidim. We're all connected. This way, that way, everyone with their own shlichus. But the point that we need to be in a keli, to be mamshich the means we should be arousing ourselves, the leiv, the hearts, to want to have the chayas, like an aver, where we see the aver vil leben. We want to have life. We want to feel closer. We want to have hashpah from the Rebbe. We want to have, and the Rebbe using that Farbrengen, chinuch from the Rebbe, brachas from the Rebbe. As the Rebbe explained, that every person in the doir of a Nasi HaDoir is shaykh zum Rebbe. Sometimes a Rebbe has only Talmidim, but a Nasi HaDoir, the ganze Doir is shaykh zum Rebbe. And the ganze Doir is shaykh zum Rebbe in different ways. Whether they were mushpach from the Rebbe through the Rebbe's chinuch, through the Rebbe's Torah, through the Rebbe's brachas. Some says the Rebbe is given ponim el ponim, some is peh el peh, and some is durch teirasai, and some is durch shluchai. And the Rebbe said all those have a complete shaykhut zum Rebbe. Today it's very obvious these different ways what they mean. Someone who had a physical experience, someone who video, audio, teira, shluchim. It's all a shaykhut zum Rebbe. And the Rebbe said something very strong, that she states in that every hilula Talmidei Chachamim ein lehem menucha, and the neshama geht b'chayil al chayil and ha'ofen of the ein aroich. And the Rebbe takes with the Chassidim. The Rebbe said something very interesting, that the neshama wants that everything should be fardint. It shouldn't be nama d'chsufa. If it's nama d'chsufa, the Rebbe used a very interesting lashon, like it's very real, and it's I don't know the word in English, but the aliyah is proper when it's fardunen, earned. And how is it fardunen? That all the people around, all the Talmidim, all the Chassidim, helfen zu. What does that mean, helfen zu? He'll wear something. Because we are mushpa from the Rebbe, because we have a shaykhut, because the Rebbe ufgetan in each one. Through the Rebbe's brachas, we're all existing through the Rebbe's brachas. We all have what we have through the Rebbe's brachas. We all are educated and Talmidim and mechunachim and shluchim and whatever, everything else, hakoil, that we have from the Rebbe. Therefore, our Inyonim are together with the Rebbe in the Aliyah of the Hilula. And that's it. And the Eibishter will geben that taka in the proper hachana, each one of us, whichever we are, whether it's affecting noch 10 Yidden, as the Rebbe wants, or learning a maimer, al hachana, or more, aliba de nafshe, and taka be ma'ir the heart, in a real way, everyone in their own personal avoda, both in kav hachiyuv, davening, learning, and being mashpia where we need to be mashpia better, and being available where we need to be available better, and also in the inyonim of tilas rocha tuma avrim in haaretz. Everyone has their own nisyanis and their own struggles with angeret meises, ruach shtus, whatever it is. The Rebbe's oir and the Rebbe's hashpa and the Rebbe's brachas and the Rebbe's chinuch, which is ad ein sof. We just have to connect to it in a eifon of stimul levavchem. And this is Mashgacha Pratis Leiv, 32 years, Zal Taka Haben, the Richtike, his Eirerus, and as the Shendala Mato, the Rebbe spoke that Farbrengen as well. That was the year of we want Mashiach now. As we want Mashiach now, and now it's a Lachas Kama V'Kama, Ben B'Noishel Kal V'Chemer, needs to be in a way of Kalim. That when a Yid schreit and zingt, we want Mashiach now, or left, we want Mashiach now, is an oifen of Keli. And the Takim Mamshich, because it's mitanemes, or made mitanemes, and it's sincere, and we want to be alive, and we want to be a Keli, is das Gufa, Mamshich Taka, this Galus should be this year already, way before now, in Sof Yimei HaTashlumin, which is the most appropriate time. Those ein this Galus take of me ad Mamish, Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim, Rabbi Lipskier. השוקח הדבר מוורטר. I remember Rabbi Yisroel Friedman once told the story of the first time Reb Zusha the Partisan came to the Rebbe. I think it was Chof Gimmel, I'm not sure exactly, or Chof Aleph. And Sukkot, it was in a Farbrengen in the Sukkah, and the Rebbe asked, who is my partisan? Where is my partisan? And Reb Zusha went up to the Rebbe spoke to him for a long time, and then to go back, those who know that the Farbrengens and the Sukkah were mamish sakonas and foshes. People were on top of each other. It was mamish. The Rebbe stopped the Farbrengen because that the famous story that a table fell and Rabbi Marley broke his foot. So mamish was sakonas and foshes. Was people were like, I mean, can you imagine the size of the Sukkah? So to go back, he was afraid to go. It was mamish dangerous he couldn't back off. And the Rabbi Yisroel Friedman said, the Rebbe said to him, Zushe, ich hid dir. I'm protecting you. And the Rebbe looked on him till he arrived to his place. And some say that Zushe said, the Rebbe said, it's a smaller weg. It's very narrow, but ich hid dir from falling. I'm protecting you from falling. That's what the Gulchovsky said, Zushe Blonsky told him. So that concept, the Rebbe said, ich hid dir. And the Rebbe looked on him with his eyes, and he's watching him. And I think this is probably the most important thing that we need to know today, 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz. There is a famous story the Rebbe told Tov Shimon Ches by the books. B'shas Shlomo Kunin went to the first time, Rabbi Shon Ber Levin, Shlomo Kunin, and Rabbi Mendel went to bring the books back the first time. It was a very, very unique sicha. Everyone remembers that Farbrengen was a very, within the Farbrengen themselves, Zigana Mor Sicha was meken sagen auf sie in Ivrit, mi sag Shmai Miyot, so Himmel dicke Sichas. I still remember the Rebbe's tziyur when he said the story. The Rebbe didn't mention the name of the Chassid, but the Rebbe told the story. The Rebbe said, "I'm a shiktzeh of Ashliches in Russia, and what will be if there'll be a question and they can't ask the Rebbe what to do?" The Rebbe told the story from the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek once said a Chassid. The Rebbe didn't say the name of the Chassid, but the famous story of Rebbe and Pleshnitzer. The Tzemach Tzedek sent a Chassid to Petersburg, and one of the Tzemach Tzedek's kids asked, "What will be?" It's all very nice. A big Chassid is a shliach, but after all, it's not the Tzemach Tzedek himself. The Rebbe said that. So what will be if there'll be a shaila that he doesn't have an answer? What will be? So the Tzemach Tzedek said that because I could trust his shikul das, and the Rebbe explained the ganze arichas that b'shas hashliach goes. It says from one hand the Rebbe says we demand from the shliach ein ledayin ma she'ein avroyes, that the shliach should do based on what he sees. But then the Rebbe said, as a yetzerai nalei yabit, that when can we trust the shliach that he will do the right thing is when he's bottled to the mishaleach, and then his re'iyah is the re'iyah for the mishaleach. So therefore, b'shaz the shliach is bottled to the mishaleach, is mekusher. Rebbe said the word is kashes and dveikes and meibeshten. So then we could trust the shliach that when he sees something, we want the shliach to make the decision. But we send the shliach and we trust the shliach. The Rebbe said the same words, the famous Yechidus, memtes to aguch. The Rebbe said, as gdoim nasut yoshim, we can zachav zei verlosen. That the gdoim, that the young became already older, that the young shluchim became older shluchim, we can zachav zei verlosen. We could trust them. That means that the Rebbe says that he's giving a koyach to all the chassidim, to all the shluchim, that in the matzav that we are now after Gimmel Tammuz, that if we are bedvekas, and the Rebbe said the word as Spalter reina sofek, if you have a doubt, sofek is a molek. Sofek is gematria molek. So the only thing you need to do is throw out the sofek, throw out the molek. And that's probably the number one important thing for now, Shleish Mishon and Gimmel Tammuz, is to throw out that amolek, to throw out that sofek, and to know that the Rebbe is poshet with us kipshute. Just like when children go to a park with their parent, and the parents send them to play, and the children are very young, very little, and they have a good time. But from time to time, they look up to make sure the parent is watching over them, that they are not alone there in this big park with all those big kids that who knows what they could do to them. And the same thing where we are now in that big world that the Rebbe sent us in. Now we have thousands of Batei Chabad all over the world, and we are everywhere. So from time to time, we have to look up to the parent to make sure he's watching, to remind ourselves that the Rebbe is watching over us, that we are not alone, chas v'sholem. And if anybody has a suffix, chas v'sholem, for 1 second, that maybe chas v'sholem, we are left alone, you should know that that's the biggest Amalek. That is the Amalek. In the last Farbrengen, Shabbos Vayakel, Tovshin and Beis, the last Farbrengen, there was a line from the Rebbe that I've never seen it in any other Farbrengen, in any other Sikha from the Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke 1,000 times about taking care of all the Yidden in every generation, that should not be left a Jew who should not have Hanukkah candles, should not have a Jew, should not have here Shefer. The Rebbe spoke 1,000 times, but that Loshen I never heard from the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe spoke Vayakel, about Parshas Vayakel. The Rebbe said, what's Vayakel? That we are makil every Jew, we gather every Jew, and we don't leave everyone as hefker. That's a Loshen. I've never heard from the Rebbe that Loshen. We don't leave every Jew and any Jew on hefker. I never heard such a Loshen from the Rebbe. The Rebbe always spoke about, taking care of all the Jews and should not be left any Jew. But the Loshen hefker, we don't leave anyone on hefker. This was the last Shabbos, the last time the Rebbe spoke to the Chassidim. And to me, it sounds like this was the biggest heroy from the Rebbe to all the Chassidim. That people, if the Rebbe, if the Rebbe is asking us not to leave any Jew on hefker in the world and to take care of every Jew, is kolshke v'kal v'chemer a billion times more that the Rebbe would chas v'sholem not leave us on Efker. And if there was a Istalkus, if there was a Gimmel Tammuz, it's only because Ba'askame for Rebbe, and it was because there was a reason for it. And as the Rebbe said, Yud Shvat of Shinit Beis, the famous Sicha, the Rebbe started the Farbrengen, and I repeat it all the time because it's something that we need to Arainaken in Kop. That the Rebbe said that Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, and he made a whole meeting and a whole Sicha. He said that he wants to start a new organization which is called Ato Igu Talmidei Yeshivas. And the Rebbe said that the Frierdiker Rebbe, after that one time he spoke about it, he never spoke about it again. It never happened. And then the Rebbe started the whole thing saying, as what's the difference between a regular human being and a tzaddik? The regular human being is b'shas, he has a plan, and since the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe said in the Maimon from Yud Shen Yud Ein Adam Yidei Itei, so he doesn't know when is time, so he's rushing to finish his plan. But a tzaddik, the Rebbe said, tzaddikim deimin lebeiram. And just like the Rebbe is the Hu Shnesav Leitomu, he has endless time, endless years, the same thing as tzaddik. So when a tzaddik has a plan, the Rebbe says, to do something in the world, he's checking out the generation, if the generation is ready for it or not. The Frierdiker Rebbe had a plan to create Ato, but he looked around, he saw that the people are not ready yet. So the tzaddik is not rushing. He's waiting for the generation to participate, to these people to be ready for it. And therefore, some things will happen of the tzaddik plans, B'chaim Chayuse Ba'almadein, and some parts of the plan will happen later. And therefore the Rebbe says, and Itzta the Rebbe willed us. And now in Tov Shin Yud Beis, the Frierdiker Rebbe wants we should do the Ato, and the Rebbe started to speak all Farbrengen about it. From that Farbrengen came out all the organizations that we know of, Tzirigulis Chabad and the Sheikh Chabad, and everything came out from this Farbrengen. That means the Rebbe clearly says that when he has a plan, it doesn't mean that the plan must happen before he is Stalkos. It continues. And as the speaker here, Rabbi Lipskier, said before, that this tzaddikim that we're talking about, like the Rabbi, they were never limited to this world, Yenevel. They were always in the same place. Agura Be'el Chelomin, they were always in Yenevelt and in Divelt, B'chodem Machta, the famous saying about the Baal Shem Tov, that during the week he was 1 shlish l'mayla and 2 shlish l'mata, on Shabbos he was 2 shlish l'mayla and 4 shlish l'mata. We don't know that, we don't understand those words, but we do know that the Rebbe was there. Remember once we spoke about the nights of Sukkot. Once the Rebbe said by one of the nights of Sukkot, the Rebbe asked the famous question about the Ushpizin, that everything is very nice about the Ushpizin. We all know the 7 Ushpizin, but who's the 7? David HaMelech. So the Rebbe said, how could it be David HaMelech was Ushpizin? Moshe Rabbeinu announced in Midbar that we're going to have the Ushpizin. So Avrohom said, everything fine. Moshe was there. But David HaMelech, he wasn't born yet. How could he be Ushpiz of Sukkot? And the Rebbe answered, as David HaMelech was given the Milo, David HaMelech. He was a Sfiras HaMalchus the Milo. He was a Ushpiz. Later, he came down later, but doesn't matter. He was already there the Milo. But by this tzaddikim, to them, the Elamazed, Yeneverts, all the same thing. So it makes no difference whatsoever. And therefore, that's the most important nekudah that we have to remember. As Bam Rebbe, Easter and before Gimmel Tammuz and after Gimmel Tammuz is Bashvoe Achas, as no difference whatsoever. And Adarabbe, there is the Yatem B'chayei, but of course, as the Rebbe always says, the Rebbe said it like in the Farbrengen, Yud Shvat of Shechov, and then in the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, as wie gut it is Zare B'chaim, and wie gut it is that Hu B'chaim was Zare B'chaim, but it kommt nicht zu Tchias HaMeisim B'Gashmias, it kommt nicht zu sehen dem Rebbe B'Gashmias. That Rebbe finished the Farbrengen for Yud Shvat of Shechov, that was mit darf monnen, and mit soll sehen dem Rebbe B'Peil Mamish B'Gashmias Mamish. L'chaim, and now I would like to invite our next speaker, Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, the Shliach in Baltimore, in Toronto, and who also was Zeichet to be Bam Rebbe all the years. I would like to ask Rabbi Mendel Kaplan to onwarmen us with the forward. L'chaim.
Shekayach l'chaim. There's a Mendel Shabbat that the Rebbe spoke about a few times. That Shleisha Imnenu B'Mayne PM, that there was 3 people that the Eibishter responded to them as they were speaking. There's Eliezer, who was Avdesh Avrohom, is Moshe Rabbeinu, and Shlomo HaMelech. Bei Eliezer steht, Vayihu terem kilo ledaber, vehine Rivka yetzes. By Moshe says, Vayikech alesi ledaber, es kol advarim ha'ela, vatiboko adama. And by Shlomo HaMelech it says, Vayikech le'shlomo le'spal Hashem, v'ha'esh yarda min hashamayim. The Rebbe asked at L'Cha'ira, when the Medrash tells us that there's Shleisha heim nenu b'mayne piyem, it's sehr schwer zu sagen that it's because the Maila of these three individuals. It says that Shlomo HaMelech and Moshe Rabbeinu and Eliezer Eved Avrohom had a Maila Ishis, a Maila Protis, that they deserve to be answered more so than anybody else. So the Rebbe was masber, and this is from Tamugi de Gesicha. The Rebbe was masber that the Inyan of Nene b'mayne piyem, the Inyan of white tefillos are not Nene miyad, because there's like this Inyan of merchak. There's a distance. There's distance between the Eibishter and between the Adam Mespal. So it's like the person davens, and tefillah is the Inyan of Hiskashrus. But L'Peil Mamish, there's like a certain amount of time that elapses until the connection is made, until there's like a shtickle merchak. And it comes from the richuk of ha'adam me'akadosh baruch hu. And the Rebbe was masber with this, the Lashon Rambam in Hilchas Tshuva in Perek Zayin Halacha Zayin. The Rambam speaks about Mailas HaTshuva. And the Rambam says, Emesh, the person was moved Hashem Elikei Yisroel. He was tzeyek ve'eini nena. So he was separated from the Eibishter. There was a distance. He was calling out and he wasn't being responded to. And what does it mean that he's mudbek b'shchina? That he's tzeyek, that the person cries out. V'nena miyad. In other words, the Rebbe said that it's tolei zeh b'zeh. When a person is mudbak b'shchina, so then he's nena taken from miyad. And then the Rebbe took it in a different direction. And the Rebbe said that just like it's benigei lo adam hamispala, that there's the inyan of mudbak b'shchina, and mitzad dveikusei, because he cleaves, because he coalesces as one, and that's why he's nena miyad. The same thing is also lifa'amim, not benigei to the adam hamispalel, not with regard to the person who's trying to connect by virtue of tefillah, but benigei to the teichenat tefillah. And the Rebbe explained that tefillah shleimei is the inyan of Ashras HaShechina b'Beis HaMikdash. This is the place where Kaviyachol is a manifestation of the Eibishter's presence in the world, to the point that the Mokem is ma'abed its gvulim. Mokem ha'orim einim in amida. That at one hand, that the Kedesh HaKadoshim has space, but at the same time, that space doesn't fit into the confines of space. Moshe Rabbeinu, the inyan of Nevuah. And the inyan of Nevuah, like it says in the Pasuk, Bezeis Teidon, Ki Hashem Shlochani, that the inyan of the Mahus of the Navi, that the Navi is Mis'achedim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'meile, the Dvar Hashem has to be mislabish in the Meach and the Seichel of the Navi, which that's the famous biur, why the Bible critics talk about the fact that there are clearly multiple authors to Tanakh, and they could demonstrate it, and they have computer programs that prove that there's different syntax, and that syntax follows, you could see clearly that it's a reflection of a particular individual, and has a certain diction and a certain framework and a certain method of articulation. It's takazeh. They're not wrong. But they don't understand that the inyan of Nevuah, that the Nevuah is misached with the Seichel and with the Midas of the Navi. The Rebbe said that the way it's Mavur in Teres Chassidim, the famous Maimer from the Alter Rebbe, and then Ba'arucha and Teres Chaim, which the Rebbe spoke many, many times, he spoke about this inyan. In Parshas Chayesara, the inyan that the mission of Eliezer Eved Avrohom, this paves the way. This is the haschala of the inyan of Matan Torah, of the inyan of Yitzchak, who represents Inyonim, born to Sarah and to Avrohom Avinu, and Leidach, the inyan of Rivka, that where she comes from, and Charei Nafshal Mokem v'chuli, And that this shidduch represents the presaging of the union of Matan Torah and ultimately the union of the Shechina Lamata. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this sikha a lot lately. Comes these weeks, these Yimei Hachana Gimmel Tammuz. We give us a little bit. We try to top the peck a little bit. Try to think about Vumahalt, maybe Vumahalt nicht. And we're very small people. We're very, very small people. Kleine Menschelach. We're on this journey, the famous Inyan that is Membei's Masos. It's yesterday's Likutei Torah, the Inyan of the Masos in the Midbar. And we're in the last Masa. We're ready for Merech V'doyin. We're dealing with Inyonim, which are tremendous challenges. The Rebbe once explained that why the Mivtzoyim of Taras HaMashpacha and Kashrus, these are l'cheda. It's not a little mitzvah. It's not like putting on film with a yid. It takes 5 minutes. It's l'cheda, a relatively easy thing to do, even to be pale by a yid, that he should take 5 minutes of his day and he should have a kviyasitim l'teira is much easier than kashering a kitchen. Yidua that the Rebbe wanted Tzach to set up an account. The Rebbe was going to pay Pashat for people to kasher the kitchen, to buy new kelim. It's a tremendously difficult thing. And Taras HaMashpacha is it's a tremendously difficult mitzvah, very difficult mitzvah to get people to sign on to, besides the expense of B'niyas HaMikveh, but Pashat, to keep the mitzvah, tremendous nisayon, tremendous, how does it fit into the Mivtzoyim? All the Mivtzoyim, we give them tzedakah, okay. Neder Shabbos Kedesh, the Rebbe explained, there would be Neder Shabbos Kedesh, things will happen. But these are l'chayra, not, they don't fit into the rhyme of the other Mivtzoyim. And the Rebbe explained once that that's because we're in the Masa Achreina, and in the Masa Achreina, this was what the Yidden had to deal with. The inyan of the Achsharas HaKelim, which came from the battle of Midian, and the inyan of the terrible Nisayon of the B'nai Midian, Kozbi Basur v'chuli. And in order to be misaken this, that's what we have the singers. This is the Masa. The Rebbe is saying this is the Masa. We're in the Masa Membes. And unfortunately, in the journey, the GPS shows us you are here. Kleine mention. We want to know where we are in the journey. I think everything is revolving around us. What's in it for us? How does it feel for us? Do we like it? Do we affiliate? How do we feel? It's like the question is supposed to be, wo halt der Rebbe? Was will der Rebbe? What is the Rebbe's concern right now? How would the Rebbe respond to the situation? What does the Rebbe want us to do? And we're, whatever, Yod Inish Benafshe, that we're very, very, it's an Isaiah Kleine mention. So it's very important, I think, for us to remember that the fact as Mirza and Kleine mention, and Hagam that the Keli, in some strange way, is Mamshech the Eir, L'Poel Mamesh, the Moir is Gorgres, the Moir is Godel Shebegdelim, and even if the Moir got stuck with Kelim that are Ktanim Shebektanim, and the Inyan of Dvekus and the Inyan of Hiskashrus, so Amol, it's not so much Toli in the Mispalel or even in the Mekusher. Amol, that it's the Teichen Inyan of Vu halten mir. That the Rebbe left us with the responsibility to bring Mashiach, and it's not a joke. It's a very, very it's like words beggar our ability to try to explain what that even means. But that's what the Rebbe said. Those are the Rebbe's words. On the Rebbe gemont that we should say Ad Masai, we should yearn for Mashiach, not because Mipnei Tzivui. Because if it's Mipnei Tzivui, the Rebbe famously told, that's why I heard it anyway, B'zal Megarai, right after that famous Sikha, everybody was screaming Ad Masai, Alam Geshri, and everybody was shaken to the core. But Pashtos, Mishrait Mipnei Tzivui. And when this Tzara is for Yidden Shrayim Mipnei Tzara. But the emes is that we need Mashiach exactly the same way when we're the Me'er Panov, and the same way when it's in a wonderful time, is the same way when it's in a very, very bad time. There's no difference. The Inyan of Mashiach is Gilui Lakus. The Inyan of Mashiach is Shechina Lamata. And that doesn't make a difference. Of all these things that people get confused. They confuse suffering and sorrow with Ad Masai. That's not Ad Masai. It's not Ad Masai. The must has to be that we want the Shechina Lamata B'Peil. We want what the Rebbe wanted. That we should find a way that we have to identify what the Rebbe is calling, the way the Rebbe wanted things. So, in kleine Menschelach, but aber Achone Monsach, the Rebbe carries us on his places, and the Rebbe hebt uns auf. Und es wird kommen, Yom HaGadol VaHaKadosh, hopefully it will be Le'achrei HaYizgalos, and will be in Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi. But we have an obligation to, so to speak, to pony up. We have an obligation to change the way we're living our life, even if only to kind of dislocate ourselves for a few weeks. There has to be an Inyan. I don't know about, Hergeshem is mostly Dimyenis Shav. Who knows, even if we feel anything on Yom Kippur, who knows what our feelings are not the barometer of truth in any way. Yesh Lemar, who knows if it's even the opposite. The question is not how we feel, I think. The question is, was man der Rebbe? Der Rebbe mont, darf abhitten the Shiurim, darf in allemal abhitten the Shiurim. But in these weeks that are coming closer to Gimmel Tammuz, darf abhitten the Shiurim in a very, very careful way. Very carefully, very careful about Rambam and Chitas. It's nicht kein Gelächter. The Rebbe mont is a learner in Yanegulu Mashiach that we should try to want Mashiach, why the Rebbe wanted Mashiach in some way. Darf man das tun? The Rebbe mont us. We have to be accountable. We have to be accountable. We're not here on our own. This is not our program. It's not about where you are on the map. It doesn't matter where you are. You actually matter because the Rebbe wants you to matter, because the Rebbe gave us a responsibility. And this is the time to focus on that responsibility. This is the time for us. There's a Heidike Rambam, there's a Siyum in Hilchas Machalas Asuris. And there's a Medidike Sicher from the Rebbe, and Chelik Level and Kutasichas on the Siyum of today's Rambam. The Rambam speaks about the Dvarim HaMeshaktzim, the things which a normal person is disgusted by. And a person not allowed to eat this, and not to eat in a disgusting way and be disgusting. And the Rambam says, in Halacha Leiv, that Kol HaNizir B'Dvarim Elu is a Mevi Kedusha V'Tara Yoseda L'Nafshei. And the Rambam says that he's Memorek Nafshei L'Shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rebbe is Medayik in the Sicha, what does it mean Kol HaNizir B'Dvarim Elu? Only Dvarim Elu? What the other mitzvahs is not? Every mitzvah a person does, he's bringing his Mevi Kedusha V'Tara Yoseda L'Nafshei. It's nafshe, the Lashon Rambam is precise. It doesn't say al nishmase. The nishmase is Kodesh. The neshama is Kodesh. The inyan of the nefesh. The nefesh is the app that connects the neshama to the body. The nefesh abamis, the nefesh alikiz. The nefesh is our consciousness. The nefesh is how we live in this world. So you bring Tara Yisrael the nafshe. And you memarik nafshe. You cleanse your nefesh. And you cleanse your nefesh l'shem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe gefragt l'chayda d'ch jede mitzvah zeh. Doch jede Moven, a Yid lernt Teira, jede Moven yitz a mitzvah, is doch Avade, is a Mevi Kedusha V'Tara. So Avade is a Memarek Nafshe. Was is the diuk of Chol HaNizir B'Dvarim Elu? And the Rebbe said, made a dik nekuda. The Rebbe said that other mitzvahs, nobody does because they want to do it. Nobody has a Tainug Nafshi from Hanochas Tefillin. He puts on Tefillin because the Eibishter says to put on Tefillin. There's a Tainug Nafshi, there's a Mach Kiddush, whatever. The Eibishter wants us to do it, so we do it. But the Dvarim HaMeshaktzim, a normal person is taka disgusted by it. It's sickening to eat lecha srucha, to use klei beis hakisei or kelim of a nituach, of blood and plasma and vomit. It's a disgusting thing. Der Rebbe gesagt, b'shas as Yid tut die Sachen, nicht weil fühlt es, not because he's disgusted by it. HaNizir b'dvarim elu is a Nizir b'dvarim elu mipnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, weil der Eibishter hat er geheißen. Then he's taka, then he maybe is Kedusha V'Tara, then he's Memorik Nafshe. These weeks, these Yimei Achana to Gimmel Tammuz, darf sich hatreiselton, and everybody b'mokem ba'asher hu sham, darf wissen this is not ordinary days. These are fateful days. They're days of tremendous importance. Gimmel Tammuz is a day which transforms the world. Avade Yisroel am kreve, and even more so, Chassidim b'miyuchad shluchim. As the Rebbe is Eila, Umir zan Allah Eila zusammen mit dem Rebbe, if we have to make those achonas. You see right away the whole union of having an Aliyah Shabbos before. You have to make Kalim. We have to do our thing. We have to do our part. And if we do it, not like, I don't know, like I was sitting with a group of Bachram on Thursday night, whatever, sweet boys, nice boys. We sat for a few hours. Some Bachram talking about talking about the pachad we used to feel. We saw the Rebbe, the pachad, that the Rebbe weggestellt, the heilige Eigenaf for a second, the pachad neder, the pachad. I was sharing with him a little bit, just the pachad. And one of the boys saying, like, could we feel the pachad today? He said, how do we feel the pachad today? And another one of the boys said, like, what's the difference? Like, it's better to make the miyena shav, to create a pachad. So the ikerism is a pasha tomvas to Rebbe will. And we was talking about the Me'achona, we have to change ourselves. And I was like, this was a bacher there, whatever, and this Grace Masmid, fine bacher, a fine boy. And he said to me, it's very hard for me to get up in the morning. The boy tells me, I can't get up in the morning. I said, die Tag, fahr Gimmel Tammuz, was ist schlafen? What's wrong with you? You can't. And the boy, mamish, like, he says, okay, I'm going to move my mattress into the zal, because I know that I can't push to get up in the morning. For the next 2.5 weeks, I'm sleeping in zal. And he meant this pashat b'ta emes. I was blown away. A pashat bacha. The boy is yedei nefesh behemte. I pashat. I can't get. It doesn't work for me. I can't get up. He said, that's it. It's okay. He says, I could do it for a few nights. I could do it for a few weeks. I'm going to bring my kolder. There's a shtickle couch on one of the. I'm sleeping in the zal, and I have no reason to believe, by the way, that he's. I'm saying it. There was nobody to impress. This is b'zeh meduber. B'zeh meduber. To pashat change ourselves, to pull ourselves together. And the Rebbe is still helping that we'll make a pischi shel machat, that the Rebbe is to effen and pischi shel ulam. The Rebbe is still helping as mizol zeiche sein dem Jahr Gimmel Tammuz, nicht kemikedem, the way the Lamed Aleph Shana lifnei zeh, but the Shnas HaLev of Gimmel Tammuz should be that Yisroel is together with Libam Shel Yisroel, and mizol sein zusammen mit den Rebbe Merz Hashem, bim Heido b'Yimeinu Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Omer, l'chaim, Shekoyach, for the warm word, Rabbi Kaplan. Since you brought up the Inyan from Mashiach, you're reminding me a memory from Yudbei Sivan. Everyone, those who know, it was my first Yudbei Sivan from Rebbe. The first time I think the Rebbe Farbrengen to Yudbei Sivan was Tovshim Ben Beis, was a surprise Farbrengen. And I remember we all ran downstairs and put together the shul, and the Rebbe came down. And the first thing was pretty empty. And the first thing the Rebbe said, the Rebbe looked on Rabbi Yisroel and he said, Shibone Beis HaMikdash. This was the beginning when the Rebbe started to sing Shibone Beis HaMikdash. As everyone knows, like Be'emet of Shemen Beis was the first time that after the end of the Sikha for children, the Rebbe said, Mizal singen Shibone Beis HaMikdash und das wird werden unser Nigen. That will become our Nigen. Because it was a Nigen that we never sang in Lubavitch. They said it will become our Nigen. And they were looking for people, and there was a svara that maybe Avrohom Fried will go up, and then they found somehow Rabbi Teleshevsky, and he came up and he sang the Nigen the first time, Shibone Beis HaMikdash, the first time the Rebbe. So this was Mamish at Beis Sivan, Mamish 3 weeks after Lag Baimer, and the Rebbe came into the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe the first thing he said to Rabbi was Shibone Beis HaMikdash. So everyone was singing Shibone Beis HaMikdash. Not everyone noticed. I at least didn't notice, because most times you couldn't notice when the Rebbe took out the handkerchief from the front, you couldn't notice that the Rebbe is going on same Maimer. And I remember still the shock. As soon as we finished the Shibone Beis HaMikdash, the Rebbe started by and the whole place was in shock and stood up. No Nigen, no Maimer Nigen. This was the Nigen for the Maimer, Shibone Beis HaMikdash. It was such a shinoi. And I still remember it like now, that we were gezittert. Like, what is going on? And everyone stood up, and the Rebbe started the Maimer right after Shibone Beis HaMikdash. So their Inyan from their Inyan is Take. We all know that the Rebbe gave in the years of Nun Aleph Nun Beis from Tov Shinun, there were Lashenis for Rebbe that now it started in Mesa Mashiach. With a very famous answer the Rebbe gave to Rav Wolpe, Yud Aleph Nisan Tov Shinun Aleph Tinose. The Rebbe write to him, Beta Chezer Dach Borabim. For sure you are chazering my moral chassidus borabim, v'azman grome yemeis HaMashiach. Also, there was a very famous answer in Nun Beis to Rav Yaroslavsky, and Rabbi Groisman just sent it around, where the Rebbe wrote him about the Machlekes, and the Rebbe wrote to him that if they can make peace, yechaku lemeis HaMashiach begiluyim. The Rebbe wrote. So here the Rebbe says, Wolpe, Azman Gomer Yemeis HaMashiach. And in Tov Shinun, already the Rebbe says, Sechon Yemeis HaMashiach. And also in Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus, the Rebbe said that Tzalchon Gemeis Mashiach. And here the Rebbe says to him, Chag Mashiach Begiluyim. What exactly? I mean, we all know that already. The Rebbe said by a famous Yechidus to Reb Shmuel Levittin, Tovshin Chavov, the Rebbe told them that the Teirim from Mashiach is open from Tovshin Tezayin, that the gates of Mashiach are open from Tovshin Tezayin already. And even though Faratzto Salat Ashchai, the Rebbe said, but the Teirim from Mashiach are open from Tovshin Tezayin. So there's an interesting Sikha, an amazing Sikha from Yitzkiz of Tovshin Chavov. And I think it's a very, very sadistic Sikha that it's important. It's only in here for Mashiach. And the whole time that we are here in this Deir HaShvim. The Rebbe said, famous Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about that Bichul Chassidus just came min Ashivya. And the Rebbe said that in the Bichul Chassidus there is from Tzemach Tzedek, there is a Inyan that, and the Rebbe started to speak about it. That there is a very famous Medrash Tamua. And the Pasuk, Bein Yerushalayim Hashem Nitchi Yisroel Lechanes. So the Medrash says, Af al pi, as Bein Yerushalayim Hashem, Af al pi chen Nitchi Yisroel Lechanes. That even though the Eibishter is building Yerushalayim, Af al pi chen, despite all of this, Nitchi Yisroel Lechanes, Eibishter will collect all the. So that everyone is asking, what's pshat in that? So the Rebbe explained, based on the Tzemach Tzedek's Maimer, that there is a very famous Mishnah, Abayis V'Aliyah, that what happened if there is a house, and on top of the house there is a Aliyah, there is a second floor, and the house fell in, was an earthquake, and the house fell in. So now there are two people, the Balabais, who owns the house, he wants to build his first floor, and he rented the house to the neighbor, to his neighbor who is sitting on the Aliyah on the second floor. So the Balabai says, I'm not interested in building I don't want to build my house. So the neighbor upstairs, he wants a house. What should he do? So the Mishnah says, let him build the first floor. And when the Balabai comes and he wants to have the first floor, you should say, listen, pay me for the first floor, and then I'll build my second floor. But the Rebbe explained that this Mishnah is the answer of the Inyonim from Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim has two floors, Yerushalayim Shel Mato and Yerushalayim Shel Mailo. And it says that after the Chum, Yerushalayim Shel Mato is the Eden, Yerushalayim Shel Mailo is where the Eibishter is. It said after the Chum, the Eibishter said, Nishba Kodesh Baruch Hu Shelei Konis Yerushalayim Shel Mailo, Biz Shel Yerushalayim Shel Mato. The Eibishter made a shvur that he will not go into Yerushalayim Shel Mailo until there will be Yerushalayim Shel Mato. And then the Eibishter is begging by the Eden to build the Yerushalayim Shel Mato, that he should be able to go in his Aliyah. But the Eden don't want. So the Rebbe says, this is the chiluk from Achisheno and Be'ita. So if it's Achisheno, so the Eibishter, his job is to arayvaf and irurit shuva, and beg the Eden to build Yerushalayim Shel Mato. What is Yerushalayim Shel Mato? The Rebbe says, Yerushalayim. The Ine from the Ira Tator. But if the Eden are refusing to build Yerushalayim Shel Mato, so comes a time as Be'ita, that the Eibishter says, I don't care anymore. I'm going to build Yerushalayim Shel Mato. I'm going to be there. And then Al Pi Din, Mitzad Shuras Adin, he does not allow the Eden to go in there. He is there because the Eden was supposed to build Yerushalayim Shel Mato, and they didn't want to, they refused. So he's not allowing them to go in. And the Rebbe explains in detail, what does that mean? The Rebbe doesn't allow them to go in. And the Rebbe says, it could be a matzav. The Mashiach is there, and the Eden are sitting and don't feel the Mashiach is there. They don't see the Mashiach is there. And the Rebbe says, there's a Loshem of Farbrengen, the Rebbe says, that the Eibishter betzach tut shuve. And the Eibishter says, Ayem b'keli tishmou. If you do it, Mashiach can come. And he can come, I feel to die was schlafen ist aber Farbrengen. So die was sleeping and now Farbrengen. And the Rebbe goes on, mitzat shuras adin, it could be a matzav, the Rebbe said, sehr bitter. It could be a matzav that Mashiach is there, and people, Am Yisrael is sitting and don't feel Mashiach is there. They don't see Mashiach. So the Eibishter says, Af al pi as bein Yerushalayim Avaya, even though that the Eden didn't build the Yerushalayim. And who is build Yerushalayim Avaya? He built Yerushalayim. So b'tzat shuras adin, they don't deserve to go in in Yerushalayim. They don't deserve to see Mashiach. They don't deserve to feel the Mashiach is here. Afal Pichein, Nitche Yisroel Lechan, Sof Kol Sof, and the Ebish Rachmanis haben, and will bring them out of Golus, that they will see the Mashiach is here. That he'll give them the koyach to do tshuva, and they'll see the Mashiach is here. That's the inner from Be'ita. So this Nekuda, when you think about when the Rebbe spoke, the Lashenes, with the Hefen and the Egen, in Tovshin and Aleph and Beit, spoke with the Hefen, you have to open your eyes. That the ganze Deira Shvi, the famous Loshen that Avrohom Paris said to his children, the Mashiach he saw, but the Beis Hamikdash he didn't see. That the whole problem of the Deira Shvi, the whole 40 years of the Rebbe's Nesias was the problem, as the Rebbe said, that we were sitting by the Farbrengen and watching and didn't feel it, didn't understand what was the Handeltzach. That's what the Rebbe says. What's the Golus? So it all depends in us. In other words, what is the Achonetz of Gimmel Tammuz? We have to understand that Mashiach is in Do. Mashiach was there from Yud Shvat Tovshin Aleph. He started the tahalich, the process from Bias Mashiach, Dosi Mesa Mashiach. And every 10 years, it was a higher and a stronger step in these Galus from Rebbe and bringing the world to Mashiach. And especially in an Aleph Rebbe, the Rebbe tzach gebeten. The Rebbe tzach gebeten, as the Rebbe says, the Mashiach sagt, as Ayem bekedet Yishmo. Okay, Mashiach kommen gleich hieß, die wir schlafen mal verbringen. If they'll wake up. And then the Rebbe says, and the Rebbe continues, afilu la'achad is talkos. The Rebbe is not only, it's even more stronger, as we see now, Merdik Inyonim, what the Rebbe started, mostly when I was a bocher in the Mems, the Rebbe spoke about Rega Shoshtika, moment of silence. And the Rebbe spoke about it Farbrengen after Farbrengen after Farbrengen, and there was no way to accomplish that. The Rebbe asked his people, the kids should write letters, and there was a war against that. And now, 40 years later, it's probably 40 years already, the Rebbe spoke about Mamish in the early Mems. One of my son is a shliach here in the Valley of Alaska. He got the school district official to institute the moment of silence in every school. And I hear from children, from Goyish kids and Jewish kids, what do they speak, to what extent, what effect the moment of silence has on them. Moshel, he got an organization that there is in the valley of Alaska. There is a whole organization that deals with children, with the youth in troubled youth. And they're making now with him a podcast of 12 podcasts of discussing the letters from the Rebbe from Levi Shmotkin's book, because Levi Shmotkin gave a speech by him, and they were there to discuss and to have youth and their parents listen to the Rebbe's letters. We could see things that years ago you didn't believe that there was no way to make it happen. I remember when the Rebbe spoke about it, was Farbrengen after Farbrengen, and nothing moved. And now you could see how people push it, the things have changed. And what I said before about what the Rebbe said when he gets to the Alter Rebbe, that he saw, that the Alter Rebbe saw, he was in a tainug because he saw how Chassidus Chabad will lead to Mashiach, and he saw Bias Mashiach coming as a result of every year, every Chassidus Chabad. The famous letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe mentioned it in the Farbrengen Beis Tammuz Mem Zayin, from Beis Teves Mem Zayin, the Farbrengen, but the Sikha, when the Rebbe spoke about Fleish Achon to Yud Shvat, the Losh and the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote in Taskisev Tovshin Yud, in the famous letter, as Chabad is not a maflege, it's not a party, but it's meant for every Jew. And the Rebbe says in the Sikha that the Alter Rebbe saw every Jew will start learning Chassidus, and now this will lead Mashiach. Is Kolshkin v'Kal Mechem, and the Rebbe spoke in the Mems about making a moment of silence. The Rebbe saw that it's going to happen. And we see now the beginning, how the world is changing, and every Indian, if it's Indian from Shtochim, how the world is totally admitting, and how the world is listening to the Rebbe today. We could see that we are mamash in Imesa Mashiach in a real way, and it only depends on us. As the Rebbe says in the Sikha, if there is a suffix, it's a molek, we have to throw the molek out and continue. Efen in the Egen means to be Mikusha zum Rebbe, and then, as was mized, das is Mashiach, and das is Gilul Lekus. L'chaim, and now we'll ask our next speaker, Shliach for Rebbe in New York, Rabbi Avrohom Sternberg Sheikhye, and he's also Zeichet to be Rebbe from day one, was born and raised, and was at Meerdike Kiruvim because of his family, his grandfather and his mother. So Baruch Hashem was Zeichet to sein am Rebbe, and Kushatz Rebbe all the years, so should give us a few warme Werte and Take Ufem in the Meilam. L'chaim, Rabbi Sternberg.
L'chaim, l'chaim. So as Yaska said, we're already well into the Shleishim Yimei Hachana, which, by the way, just ha'ara k'tzara, the Rebbe actually on Asara B'Teva started speaking about Shleishim Yimei Hachana.
Oh, thank you.
El B'derech Maiver is the month Azeh B'Kitzur Nimritz, and on Monday night, the Rebbe said we mit Geret Shein Asara B'Tevas.
Oh,
So it's
thank you.
exactly 30 days. And Shein,
But the Shturim started.
there's Shein Tif in the Achana, or at least we're supposed to be. And the question is, what are we being making to? Es kommt a Yom HaGadol, and you could definitely say Vahaneira, because it's Neira, it's Mo'im. I mean, I've tracht na fila as that we're going, like Mendel said earlier, like we're going to experience Gimmel Tammuz again for the 32nd time. And you ask people, what does Gimmel Tammuz mean for them? And everyone has a different, verbalize it in a different way. Despite what it feels like to us, and for those who experience Gimmel Tammuz as already somewhat mature, there's what says Chassidim, which is the real reality, what Gimmel Tammuz is. So that was the Herzfield, what Gimmel Tammuz is. The Stochen Herz, as it kommt nach Gimmel Tammuz. And then there is the reality, the way it is in Chassidim, that tells us that a day like Gimmel Tammuz is a very holy day, a very special day. And it's a day that's not only special for the Rebbe, but automatically, because it's special to the Rebbe, it's special for all those who are makusher to the Rebbe. But if we're not going to prepare ourselves for it, then the day could come and the day could leave, and we wonder, what? Another Gimmel Tammuz passed? And even though we will feel, there's no question, Gimmel Tammuz is going to come and we're going to feel it. The question is, what are we going to feel? I remember once hearing from the Melech Tzvibel of Hashem that a Bacher wrote to the Rebbe after Tishrei. There was by the Rebbe the whole Tishrei. And he doesn't feel that there was somewhat of a hazazah. He experienced, he was there, he saw everything. Nothing changed. And the Rebbe responded to him. I don't remember the lashon. I don't know if he said the lashon, but the teichen was, how was your avodah in Chedesh El? What kind of achonis did you make for Tishrei? And whether we have 30 days left or we have only 20 days left, it is critical for us to do the proper achana in order that Gimmel Tammuz arrives and we experience the Gimmel Tammuz the way the Rebbe wants us to experience. Halavai should be with the Binyan Beis Hamikdash and to see the Rebbe Begaluyim, and of course the halachas kama. We need to have the achanas lazeh that Mizoken come zum Tish and to say to the Rebbe that we were ready for this Hiskashrus. But we need to do something about it. Bashkar Pratis, Rabbi Greenberg said earlier that this should have been Gimmel Sivan, but the pilot is Yibei Sivan. It's Parshas Ba'aloischa. And about the Farbrengen of Nasei Aleph to Nasei, everyone remembers, or those who were there, those who were not there, remembers reading from people who describe or listening to descriptions of what happened that the Rebbe came down then the second Farbrengen of Yubes Sivan Tinase. But the Shabbos afterwards was a very, very powerful Farbrengen, which is one of, you could say that's about every Farbrengen really, but I think it's a very, very potent sikha that speaks about the tkuf that we're in, that tkuf we've been in since Gimmel Tammuz. And the kud is baleis kasaneris. As Rashi says, one shot is that when he's madlik, when the kind is madlik, he has to be there and make sure Achite shall have us elam elah. And what does it mean? Shetei shall have us elam elah. The Rebbe teaches that even when the mashpia is not there later in the Eifim Galui, it's going to be elam elah. In Tafshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe wrote a zettel the famous zettel, called Kayet al Cherev, and there's a makom l'chash that this Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus yelech cholich v'chaser rachman litzlan. This is the Rebbe just took the Nasias, and the Rebbe was there to inspire every single chassid that the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus should go mechayel l'choil. And yet the Rebbe says that there was yesh makom l'chash that this Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus yelech cholich v'chaser rachman litzlan. I don't know about everybody. I can tell you what I felt on Gimmel Tammuz, Tafshin and Dalet. I came back late at night into 770, and I heard the Rebbe's Heiligen Kol playing. And I broke down in tears of saying, when is going to be the next time I'm going to be able to hear something like this? I meant it even in a recording. At that time, who had access to be able to instantly hear the Rebbe's recordings on a regular basis? I remember growing up in yeshiva, there were a few bachrim that had suitcases full of cassettes. And they wanted to know they had every single tape, not every single tape. It was a whole big deal. But the average other, if you weren't a collector by nature, you had some tapes, put them Tafshin Chai, there was some famous Farbrengen that they were able to listen to. And at that time I was thinking, now we have to be able to hear it. What is it going to take that we should be able to be able to have a Hesek Yad, another Sikh, another Farbrengen? And it took time. 6 years, 7 years. First it came through in the MP3s, then it came on, people had it on iPods, and today you have it on your phone. Today you have access to everything. We have videos of so many Sikhs and Mamarim. Not to make light the yesh makom l'chash that the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus yelech cholich v'chaser. But I think that it's proper to say that one of the biggest nisim and one of the biggest giluyim of the Rebbe in a post-Gimmel Tammuz era is similar to the nest of the Nitzchis of Am Yisroel. The biggest nest that exists today is the fact that Yidden are alive. The biggest nest that exists in the post-Gimmel Tammuz era, yes, you could say that everyone in their Inyan Prati has a lot more to do in the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus. I'm not trying to say Sisu b'nei Mei, we're perfect in the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus. But collectively, Chassidim Chabad today, the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus to the Rebbe is alive. It's real. When you go and you meet a bacher that knows every nuance of a Farbrengen better than those who were there all the years, and knows every human, and knows with them, with them. Recently, there's a video going around of a couple that both were in the Skarev through Shluchim of the Rebbe. I made a story how they met. V'chulu, v'chulu. There's one line in that story that strikes a chord. He said that one day he was walking with his kid, and the kid asked him for a Rebbe story. And he turned to him and said, "We are all Rebbe stories. We are the Rebbe story. Today, every single Lubavitcher, whether you were there before Gimmel Tammuz or you were born after Gimmel Tammuz, every chassid was slept tight with the Rebbe. It's a Rebbe story." But the Rebbe says in that Farbrengen, Baleischa, Tinasei, that there's two ways of working that shall have its Elam Elah. One is that you have to work with the wick. The guf naturally doesn't want to burn, but if you're going to work with the guf, Hergel Nasa Teva, ultimately it'll start burning on its own. Tifer and Hecher is when you realize that in the Shad and the Shama, there was never an issue in the first place. And it burns alone. So on the one hand, every single one of us, those who are Yeshnim Pei, those who will hear it later, and those who will not hear it later, the fact is that every Lubavitcher Chassid Basher Usham lives with the Rebbe. Ain't Suffolk. So Manis Chadish Heint, that we're 30 days before Gimmel Tammuz, and we say we have to live with the Rebbe even more. Because Ha Gufa that there's a distinction that sometimes we feel it more bisgalus and sometimes we don't feel it more bisgalus. Sometimes we're more alive and sometimes we're a little bit more numb. It's something that we're not there completely yet. The Rebbe is definitely living within us. And the Rebbe is definitely here guiding us. But the fact that sometimes we see it more and sometimes we see it less is like the Rebbe says in the Maimar Batzat Tetzava, that it's mad about Baker. There are times that it's Baker, there's times that it's Erev. And the fact that naturally when it comes the Yom HaKrevim to Gimmel Tammuz, we feel closer to the Rebbe, that actually is us mechayev. That the Hachana has to be more seriously in order that there should not be a distinction between the Yom HaSmuch and Gimmel Tammuz and all year round. And that Farbrengen, about Leischa Tinasei, the Rebbe talks about a very interesting fact that the Gemara in Shabbos talks about a din in Hilchos Shabbos, that every sefer that has at least 85 ACAs, you can save it because it's the size of a whole sefer. Because while we know that normally there's Chamishi Chumshe Torah, but there's a second cheshbon, Patzva Mendel Sheva, that is 7 svarim. And what is this? How is the break of the 7 svarim? Bereish Shmeis Vayikra is the first 3 svarim. Chumash Devarim remains the last sefer. But Sefer Bamidbar is divided into 3. There's from the beginning of Bamidbar until Vayi ben Seyarin. There's Vayi ben Seyarin and Kum Hashem, those 2 psukim that have 85 ACs. And from that we learn out the halacha, that that's the shear of a sefer. Then the 6th sefer starts from afterwards, and then Sefer Devarim is the 7th sefer. What is the sefer that starts after Vayi ben Seyarin? Vayi Kinus, and begins a series of horror stories, one after the other. First there's the Inyan of Kinus Hachana, and there's the whole plague that comes afterwards, and then there is Inyan of the Meraglim, and then there's Inyan of Keirach. One after the other, and this is the whole sefer. Starts with the shail, how could it be a sefer in the Torah that is so full of Inyonim that are not toy b'teva nira v'anigla, and it starts off with something that's not b'shochem shel Yisroel. Breishis is beis reishis, and there's the iyim b'shlu Yisroel b'shlu Torah, and Shmeis b'nei Yisroel talks about the mile of Reuven Shivin. Nachse Reuven Shivin Solke Vayikra the Chibasun shel Yisroel Bamidbar is made Nesim B'chol Yom. Devarim doesn't have the from Galui, but it's still in of Chibasun shel Yisroel. But Vayivi Kinus Hachana is a in Hashrek leChamatz. Says that Rebbe by design it's put into Pashas Balo Yisroel. Because it starts off with Inya Baleischa as a notice that Aaron, the Roya Shel Yisroel, is madlik the neir in the Eifish that shall have his Elam Allah. So it causes that in every situation, no matter what is going to be the situation, we have the ability to see that shall have his Elam Allah. And that's why the Rebbe says it's only Kinus Hachana. The story seems to be a negative story, but it's only Kinus Hachana. It's up to us. We have the ability to make from the Messiah, it should only be Kinus Hachana, that it should really turn into something which is very positive. It should turn into something which shall have us Elam Allah. The Rebbe finishes off the Sicha, the Frat, as Hareya, Aaron HaKayin Shebedereinu, Chachmu Chadmur Nesidereinu, had bewiesen begolo is ein Ave zu alle Yidden Bechlal. Kemaim upon. There's no question, as I said earlier, the reason why we are all the Rebbe story of our generation is because the Rebbe's love for each and every one of us did not allow that this yesh makim l'chshash, that Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus, yelech hochem v'chali v'chasen achmal etzlan, the Rebbe doesn't allow it to happen. His ava to us doesn't allow it to happen. But now there has to be kemaya upon him. Our job is we have to give it back to the Rebbe. when a person thinks about this Nakuda, and now the Yimei Hachana of Gimmel Tammuz, we think about it in a more real way, in Pe'el Mamish, just like Ketzid Yaveh La'avasi L'Riyosei says that Rambam, it has to be when he's Mizbeinin. So when we are Mizbeinin every single day, how fortunate we are to be the Rebbe's Chassidim. How fortunate we are that we're still alive today because of the Rebbe. How fortunate we are that the Rebbe is living within us. But as a result, the Rebbe, we should start loving the Rebbe at night from Golder. Tafshim and Gimmel. There's a very big machlekes in Kfar Chabad. Tishrei, the end of Tishrei, there was Yechidus clothes for all the Erechim was already downstairs in 770. The Rebbe asked that after the Erechim, the regular, all the Erechim were in the Yechidus, and then the Rebbe asked that only the Teshvim of Nachlas HaChabad and Kfar Chabad should remain Yechidus. The Rebbe spoke another sikh about that. The Nakuda was about Avos Yisroel, and says Friedrich Rebbe's Kfar, and they have to do whatever it takes to make the Yasda Kfar. But the Rebbe, towards the end of the Sikha, said there's a line. The Rebbe said, and Avos Yisroel and Avos Chinam. Then the Rebbe said, was be'emes is nishayich zu sagen Avos Chinam. The word Avos Chinam is not appropriate. I'm a belangt to ein roya, ein pastach. We belong to one shepherd. Then naturally there has to be an Ava to another chassid, to another yid. So one practical nekuda there has to be an achana of Gimmel Tammuz, that if we realize how fortunate we are that we're living today as results of the Rebbe's Ava to us. And that's why we're alive. That's why we have Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus. We want to give the Rebbe nachas ruach. We want the Rebbe to be alive. One of the practical ways of doing so is to strengthening ourselves in our Avos Yisrael. And strengthening ourselves in living with the Rebbe on a regular basis. If you don't have yet a regular kviyas in the Rebbe's Torah on a regular basis, for whatever reason, then make it a business. These are the Yimei Hachana. Im duachim kulchem. The Rebbe wanted Tafshim and Mezayin that every 10 days there should be pchinos. And there's no such thing as lo'hayim muchel pchinos. If you weren't ready, it's a siman that you didn't do anything about it. The Rebbe wanted we should live, like Rabbi Kaplan mentioned before, we should live with the mattress in the base medrash. We should be was heißt, im doachim kulchem, it's coming. And when we will strengthen the Rebbe asher b'kirbi, we will live more openly with the Rebbe. We will breathe more openly with the Rebbe. Then we will be able to cause that there should be a hefsek of all the parsois and all the masachim. Not to go into tarichas, but there's a maimer of Shavuos, Tafshin Chafei, where the Rebbe speaks about that there's two nekudas of Achana to Matan Torah, the Bir of Nefesh Bahamas and Rusa Deliba. The Rebbe goes into a very, very deep askola. But the whole nekuda is that the pnimius of our Aveda is one with Atmos Malus. Never then, there are barriers, there's Parsais, there's Mesachim. By us being Mevarer, our Nefesh Bahamas, we cause a bitter and a zichoch in all the Mesachim, in all those barriers, in all those Parsais, in all and everything, till Tzimtzum Marish. And that's why the Hachana to Gimmel Tammuz is so critical. The fact that the Rebbe is living within us is there's no suffix. But the Peyam Mamish, we don't see it. Bay from Golui. There are days, perhaps we see it a little bit more, the days we see it less. All that has to do because of the Masachim, because of the Parsais. If we will be Mevarer, those Parsais, we will break all the barriers, then we will be able to be Zeicha, that this Hachana will actually be the biggest Hachana to this Galus of the Rebbe, V'v'mzazen Rebbe, the Lamatin Aguf, Lamatin Asar Tvachim, V'hui Galeinu L'chaim.
Shakoyach Rabbi Sternberg, L'chaim, Shakoyach for Davar Meverter. Before we conclude with Rabbi Spalter, I would like first to remind everyone that there's going to be a major Farbrengen on Zoom in honor of Chassidim, and it's going to be, I think, Monday night. We'll announce the details. But before that, just to say one vote before we go to Rabbi Spalter with the final speaker today, the final Farbrenger. Just to remind everyone about the Sikha that the Rebbe spoke right before Shnasar Boim of Yud Shvat, when it was the beginning of Shnasar Boim, Shabbos Va'ero, Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Tov Shemem Tes. The Rebbe said the famous Sikha about, the Rebbe spoke, it was Va'ero, the Rebbe went back, the Rebbe spoke about what we're going to read Minche, Parshas Bei. And Parshas Bei says, Beil Parei. In the famous vote, the Bible says, Boil Parei, that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid to go to Parei. The Eibishter told them, Boil Parei, I'll go with you. And the Rebbe explained that the Eibishter didn't say there's nothing to be afraid of Parei. He said there was a place of Bigdusha to be afraid of Parei, because you don't go to a Mokum Sakona. And yet the Eibishter said, I will go with you, a special extra chizuk that I will go with you. And the Rebbe said about this, it's the same thing, Mishas we get Airoi for Nosi Adeir, to go on Shlichus. And sometimes the shlichus is a mokim sakona, a initial sakona. So the Rebbe says you have to know that you have the koiches for that. And even though the Klugenker is saying Teira leiba shamaymi, and the Rebbe is in Elam, and the Nosia there is in Elam Emes, and from there in that world you can't see the pchadim, the fears, and the limitation that we have in Elam Hazeh. So how can we pass an halacha based on Elam Emes? So the Rebbe said by the Farbrengen, and then there is a change for the way the Rebbe put it in the Hagoy in the Muge. But by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, the B'shas you go to the Tzion, which the Tzion is here lamata in Elam Hazeh. You go to the oil, and you hear, or seduchtzachas meher, or you imagine, or you have an imagination that you hear, or you hear from someone who hears. And then in the Muge, the Rebbe wrote, the B'shas you go to the Tzion, and you write a pidyon, and you mishtateach on the Tzion, where the Tzion is here in this world, and the Rebbe is in the oil, in the physical oil in this world, is therefore, that's considered that the Rebbe is a nasi be'al modein in this world physically. Just the way the Rebbe, famous Sikha, the Rebbe said about the Parshas Vayichi, right after the Heiteves, the Rebbe said that the inyan from the Eil is that therefore why Parshas Vayichi ends by Yusam Ba'oren b'Mitzroim, that that's the biggest chizuk for the Eden in Mitzrayim, that Yosef was staying with them in the Eil, in Mitzrayim, in the Oren, and he didn't go to Eretz Yisrael because he'll be there to give them the chizuk. So, and the Rebbe spoke about Benegate, so Avrohom Avinu, Benegate, so Rabbi Yudah Nossi, that he used to come begashmias, and Avrohom Avinu, the story that he came to Yom Kippur in Hebron, and the Eden didn't have a minyan, and Avrohom Avinu was the tent, and then he disappeared after Yom Kippur was over, and he came the dream to the Rov of the community, and he said to him that he was there, and the Rebbe said the famous question, how could he couldn't stand that people didn't have a minyan, so he came there. So the Rebbe said, how could you be mitzvah Avinu to a minyan? It's all good and nice, but a minyan has to be 10 Yidden in our life, begashmias. And how could Rabbi Yehuda Anosi make kiddush for his family when he was not there begashmis? And the Rebbe explained that the tzaddikim on that level, like the Nesi Adir, the leaders of the generations, they come to Lamato not for themselves. They come only for us. And therefore they continue serving their people even after they are stalkers, exactly like before us. B'shas they come beguf, then they are considered neshamas beguf lepoel, because they are part of the gufim of the neshamas begufim that they serve. The mele, that's the Inyonim. So b'shas come Gimmel Tammuz. So as Rabbi Sternberg said, we hope that there will be this galus for Rebbe Dolamato, but until then, we have to know the importance of everyone should go make all the plans that him and his children and wife and children and Koravim all should go Gimmel Tammuz some Eil, or the day before, the day after, whenever you can, to go to the Eil, because that means that the Rebbe's begashmis dolamato, and as the Rebbe said in the famous letter, what you feel when you're going to the Eil. So l'chaim, everybody, and we should be zeichen. And I would like to ask, we should be zeichen to really feel the Rebbe's presence every day with us. And we should zeichen to see the Rebbe Lamato begashmis. And now we'll ask Rabbi Spalter to conclude the Farbrengen. L'chaim. Rabbi Spalter? We can't hear you, Rabbi Spalter. Is our technician, Rabbi Levi, are you there? Rabbi Levi? Oh, now we hear you.
Now you can hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. L'chaim, I don't have with me l'chaim mamish, but when I get home, I'll drink.
I'll say l'chaim for you.
L'chaim for me. I want to pick up where Rabbi Sternberg mentioned the words of the Friedrich Rebbe, Im Dohachen Kulchem. So I'm reminded, and it's worth repeating, that this is the Werter Im Dohachen, these words Im Dohachen Kulchem are from a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe that he wrote 1 year before Beis Nissen, to prepare the Chassidim for the Yom Elul of the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe writes of it, the Friedrich Rebbe writes, Mesugel Hu Hayom, this day, meaning Beis Nissen, is a Mesugel, it's an auspicious time, Liskasher Beitz Achayim, to connect in the tree of life, meaning the Rebbe, Anash v'Talmidi Atmimim, he's addressing Lubavitch Chassidim and Tmimim, and he says, Im dohachin kulchem atem nesheichem b'neichem of nesechem, stand ready, all of you, your wives, your children, your sons, your daughters, lekabel birchas Hashem, to receive the brachas of the Eibishter, b'shifas chayim u'parnosa teva, with abundance of life and good parnosa v'nachas miyetzach alotzeichem, asher yashpi, and he goes on. And this is the bracha that the Rebbe Rashab, the Baal HaIlula, is going to be ma'erer for his mushpoim, his chassidim, and tmimim, etc. And the Rebbe was mentioned over here, the Farbrengen of Tavshin Yud Tavshin Chov, the Rebbe mentions over there, and he takes apart this letter, and he focuses on the 3 words, Imdu Hachan Kulchem. And he says like this, that Imdu, the language, I don't know if where Imdu Hachan Kulchem comes from, but he says every word is meduyik. And he says that, what does Imdu mean, stand? So he says, first you have to do if you want to prepare for the Yom HaIlula of the Rebbe Rashab, of the Rebbe, Gimmel Tammuz in our case, you have to stand. What does stand? What does stand mean? To push it, to stop, to put the brakes, to press on the brakes, and to just remain in one place, so to say, And as he says, to hold back from the pursuit of the Inyonim of this world, which are a waste, mostly it's a waste of time, and to put the brakes on yourself and say, wait a minute, there's a special day coming. To forget about everything and to just think for a second that there's such a day coming, to stand in one place and contemplate that. What does Hachin mean? And the Rebbe says to prepare yourself to be Makabel the bracha. What is it? You need the Rebbe wants to give me a bracha. I need a special achon for it. Who's not willing to take a bracha? The Rebbe gets a bracha. What is the achon over here? So the Rebbe says that's very interesting. He says liskeinen lekabel as a bracha, to prepare yourself to receive the bracha mitech regesh shel ave v'chiba. Al mi shemeir rachem rab lamshcha bracha ad l'matamat. In other words, the achana to be makabel the bracha is to arouse within yourself a feeling of ave, of love, and chiba, and to treasure love to the Rebbe, to the one that's giving the bracha. That's the achana. In other words, you have to prepare yourself to receive the bracha mitech ave and chiba. And kulchem is when we do it all together, which is what this Farbrengen is. We come together to prepare ourselves, and not just us and each one individually in his own house, in his own life, with his own shpacha, but all together that helps in the achana. That's Betur Akdama. We find that it was mentioned before, Rabbi Lipskier mentioned that we're going into the 32nd year. It's 31 full years since Gimmel Tammuz. And we're simple people. That was also mentioned before, we're small people. And if the Rebbe said in Tovshin Yud and Tovshin Yud Aleph, I think it was in Tovshin Yud Aleph the Rebbe said it, in the beginning of Tovshin Yud Aleph, somewhere in the beginning of those months, the Rebbe said that it's already, he was worried, there was Rabbi Sternberg mentioned it, that he was worried that the Vaad Or Vechom Hahiskashrus will become weak. Over Kayitz and Kol Acheref. Summer went by, and the winter is almost over, and time time has an effect. And the Rebbe was worried that this Hiskashrus would become weakened after a summer and a winter that went by since Yud Shvat. Could you imagine? That's in 1 year. There were already 31 over Kayitz. There were 31 summers that went by already, and 31 winters that went by already. So could you imagine what could we say if standing today to prepare and to try to arouse and to be me'erer a bissel Hiskashrus and something, a feeling of ave and whatever else we're talking about over the last 2 hours? How are we supposed to do this after 31 years? The Rebbe was worried that it would be cooled off after 1 summer and 1 winter. Imagine 31 summers and 31 winters. So how do we go to this, and how do we make sure, Taka, that although we're just regular people, and it's impossible that we should be today like we were in Gimmel, around Gimmel Tammuz, Tafshin and Dalit, time does have an effect. So what's the antidote to this fear that we'll cool off and we won't have what it takes and we won't be there and we won't connect and so on. The whole thing becomes cold. So I want to draw your attention to a sikha that the Rebbe said. I mean, almost every sikha addresses this, but there are certain sikhas that stand out. The year Tafshin Yud and Tafshin Yudal of that first year, they're a treasure in their own right. Every sikha in the Rebbe is a treasure. We're not here to measure one sikha and one Farbrengen against the other. But that year, anyone that reads it will recognize the necessity of learning them, not just once, but every so often to go through them. It's a must. So I want to just quote one sikha over there. It was not this Shabbos, it was Shabbos Shlach, not from this week, but Shabbos Shlach Tovshin Yud. The Rebbe said, he would ask the famous question about the Meraglim, why is it that what was the big complaint against the Meraglim? All they did was give a report that Moshe Rabbeinu asked, and Kolev shuts them down, he quiets them down, he tries to shut them down, even before they gave their maskana, even before they said, and therefore we shouldn't go to Eretz Yisrael. They right after the report, what they said, what they saw, he right away shut them down. So what they do wrong? Why did he shut them down, and what was wrong over here? And the second question that Rebbe asks is, why did Kolev go to Chevron to be Mishtateach al Kivrei Ovis? He had a bracha from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu chose him, handpicked him, and sent him on a shlichus. What does he need to go to be Mishtateach by andere, by even the Ovis? I mean, why didn't he rely on on Moshe Rabbeinu? I think he had my shlichus, that should be enough. What did he go to Chevron for? So the Rebbe says, I don't want to go into the whole arichas of it, but the Rebbe says basically these questions are asked in many sichos and different answers are given, but over here the Rebbe said as follows, that the problem that the Meraglim had was that they didn't even do anything wrong in what they said. The problem was that they changed the order. So when Moshe Rabbeinu sent them, he told them, go find out how to conquer the land. If it's a hard place to conquer, if it's not a hard place to conquer. If it's hard, harofa, is it easy? And then tell us about the land itself, if it's a good land, if it's a bad land. If it's a fat land, it gives good fruits, good trees, etc. But when they came back, they didn't say anything. They answered both questions. But they gave a report on if the land is a good land or a bad land before the report about whether it's going to be hard to conquer it or not. And that change in order was what turned on turned on the bells by Kolev. If you made a shina in the order already, what's the significance of this shina? The Rebbe said that they were looking, to them, they wanted to see the schar. If it's is it a good land? Is it worth to take it over or not? So that was what they were focused on first. And the Mela, if that's your focus, then you're using your own cheshbenis, you're using your own calculations. Then obviously you're going to make a calculation. Is if it's a worthy investment, if the reward is big enough, then I'll go through a hard conquer. If it's not big enough, I won't. And that's what turned them to go against Moshe Rabbeinu and the Eibush and the whole thing, because they were thinking about the schar and the outcome, meaning the benefits that come from this. Where Moshe told them, it's not a question of benefits. The benefits come later. The first thing is we have to find out how, conquering it, how to conquer. That's what the Eibush wants. That's what we do. When the Kolev saw that, they made a tiny little change. Most people would glance over such a change. But he saw in this already the beginning of the problems, and that's why he shut them down. And the Rebbe says then, that also explains why Kolev had to go to Chevron. Why? He says when Moshe Rabbeinu sends on the shlichus, it's a little hard to understand this, but this is what the Rebbe said, so I'm just going to give it over. The Rebbe said that it's not enough to get a shlichus from Moshe. Moshe can give you a shlichus, and that alone doesn't yet preclude you using your own brains. And maybe it's even a positive to use your own head to see how to fulfill the shlichus and to analyze and to make a cheshbon and to see the best way to conquer to do the shlichus in the best way. So just Moshe Rabbeinu sending you on a shlichus is not yet going to preclude you using your own cheshbenis, and your own cheshbenis already is a dangerous thing. So therefore, he says he went to be mishtateach. What's mishtateach? So the Rebbe said over there that the shtatchus means you put your head and your feet on the same level, which means that your head is not any more significant than your feet, which the idea of Kabbalah Seil, that the first thing you have to have is Kabbalah Seil, and to be connected to the shlichus without cheshbenis, and then you can start making cheshbenis how to fulfill the best way. So that's why he felt he needed to go to Chevron. Over there is where he laid himself flat, so to say, and his head and his feet were on the same level, where his mind, when he does employ his mind to do this right, it will keep him in check, it will keep him safe, and that the mind shouldn't veer off, God, chas v'sholem, from the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the rotzim from Moshe Rabbeinu, and the kavanah from the Mishalech, and so on and so forth. You know, we're standing over here a few weeks before Gimmel Tammuz. We're all trying to make a connection to try to see how to come to the Ale this year. Something, you know, we should, it shouldn't be just mitzvahs anoshim ulumada. You have to go because that's where a chassid does in Gimmel Tammuz. So you go and says kibeli kachpelte, whatever chas v'sholem, and you go in and you go out and slinogav lepago. We all look, we're looking. Yeah, there ain't even the most simplest of us. Well, Gimmel Tammuz, something does stir within us, a desire, a rotzen, a want to. When we go in, we should have a tzir pnei harav, and it should have some effect. It should have some effect even for the short term, alavai the long term. So we're here today farbrengen about this and to try to bring it to life, to find the aces, to find the regesh, to find the feeling for it, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to, a lot was said over here tonight, but the Rebbe says, gerade in that farbrengen, that Kole was mishtateach al kivrei avos. There's two types of ishtatchus, says the Rebbe over there. You can't be in Chevron every day. You went once, and then, you know, then you go home. So the Rebbe said there's another type of ishtatchus as well. The ishtatchus is, what's a ishtatchus? You go to the tzion, the kever, with the Rebbe doizer, right? So the Rebbe said there's another form of ishtatchus through learning his Torah. Why? Because the Rebbe, I don't want to use the wrong words, but the Rebbe put himself, that's chareingelegt, he buried himself, so to say, in his Torah. That's where he is. And the Mela, when you learn a sicha, and you learn a maimer, and you learn a letter, and whatever it is, that's ishtatchus, the Rebbe says in that sicha. Because you're connecting to the Rebbe where he is, and he's buried in his Torah, buried in Lamal Yusuf. That's where he is. He's totally in his Torah. So B'meila, as we prepare for Gimmel Tammuz, I would like to make a recommendation, and Rabbi Kaplan mentioned to learn the shiurim. That's a given. Yeah, on the shiurim is you're not on the train b'chlal, but once you're on the train, that's not my first class ticket. So B'meila, you want to be not under the bench. You want to be in a good seat. So I want to suggest that these sichas that the Rebbe said in the beginning of the Nesias, even before Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe was relentless. There wasn't a farbrengen that didn't go. I mean, if you want to make a teich kotzer from that whole year, it's 3 words. The Rebbe is with us just like before. He's alive. He's nitzchi, and the Rebbe said it in many different ways, connected it to the parshas of the week that he was farbrengen, or Yom Tov, or whatever it was. But it was relentless. And the Rebbe it's so reich, it's so rich. The words are rich. The teichen is rich. Every angle is another angle. Every farbrengen, he brings it from another, from another place, and so on. So I think, it's not terribly long. It's a few months. If you could do it in a few weeks, great. If you could do it in a few months, but it's so benafsheina, these sichas. I'm saying it because I've just done it. I'm in middle. I'm going through them again. They are just a treasure. That that's the first ishtadchus, to throw yourself into these words, these farbrengens, these sichas, and that will allow us that when we go to the real ishtadchus. I don't know which. Why I mean it's real. This one is not real, but the begashim is the ishtadchus. That the ishtatchus in the Gimmel Tammuz itself will be one where you have prepared and you're connected and you understood the Rebbe's words that nothing changed and he's nitzchi and he's here just like before. And the Rebbe says it in so many rich ways. There's hundreds of pages. I mean, I know we can't do it in a matter of a few weeks, but do a little of it. It's a machai. It's pashut, a life-giving source of tremendous energy, even begashmis, it's a geschmack learning, and I highly recommend it. I mean, I know we always speak about that first half a year, that first year, how important it is to learn it. But then we maybe learned it once, and who doesn't forget what you learn? Halavai, you can remember it for 2 days, let alone 30 years. So the mail, if you can learn it every so often, I'm telling you, it is a really a treasure, and it's a must for each one of us, and not just to do it yourself, but to even tell your kids a little bit about it. You can't just be a dugmachai. You have to engage the kids and bring them into it. And the Rebbe is all helping that if we be mishtateach in the next 3 weeks through learning, and then the shtatchus on Gimmel Tammuz will be taka a bit better. Hoffentlich at sein afil if chas v'shol Mashiach. I don't want to speak if Mashiach doesn't come. Mashiach zal taktish and kumen bekor of mamish, and we should not have to worry about another summer that goes by and another winter that finished, and we have to give another Farbrengen to be meichen sich and to go through this whole thing over and over and over and over. But this is where we are now, so we have to speak about that. So Chavraya, this is I didn't just discover it. We all know it. This is we've done it in the past. Do it again. It's a refresher. The neshama needs it. The Rebbe is a helfen taka. We should all be zeicha that when we go to the El on Gimmel Tammuz, it should be an andrigig. It should be a different kind of going. And even if we go in there for a second, because they're going to let you in mamish for 10 seconds, they don't even let you read your pan. But if you have learned, you read your pan beforehand, and you learn some of these sichas beforehand, it's mu'at hamachzik zamruba. It'll make the effect. It's an essential connection, and the Rebbe should helping that we should be mekabel the brachas taka. Us, our children, our wives, our sons, our daughters, for parnasa bar chava, and we should taka make all the brachas that the Rebbe quotes over here, and we should receive it mit gewaltige avet zum Rebbe. That's the achona that the Rebbe mentions, and it's not a nice. It doesn't happen automatic. We have to work at it. So let's work at it for the next few weeks. And zeicha zayin taka that the achona should be a full achona, and keinu kemuven, but it should be an effective one. And mizom makabel zayin the brachas yedereine vos hadarf, what do we need, and should be bekorav mamish l'chaim. I was asked by Rabbi Greenberg to close the Farbrengen because he had to leave to a wedding that he's doing now. So I want to once again first of all, thank everyone that spoke on behalf of Vaad Or Vechom, and to thank the Vaad of Vaad Or Vechom, which I'm part of, and to thank those that worked on this Farbrengen, those that spoke by this Farbrengen. It was very effective, very geschmack, and we hope to see you back, God willing, by the Farbrengen that we planned for Chov Ches Sivan, just a few days before Gimmel Tammuz, and Biz Yamel Mashiach Kumen, and the Rebbe should bring Chov Ches Sivan, and the Kor of Mamish L'chaim.